Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Freelancers Mindset Shortcast. I can't believe we are on season 2 already, and we have a great guest with us today to kickstart this season. We have with us Shreya Bahadur, who is somebody I met while casually like just shopping on Instagram. And she happened to give me a call, and for some reason, that vibe just clicked, and I decided I need to have her on this shortcast. Shreya is the founder of White Chaos, which is a fashion brand making their own handmade clothing from scratch. And I'm really glad to be talking to her about things they don't teach you in business school today. So, hey Shreya, welcome to the call.
Hi, Meenakshi. Thank you so much.
You studied in college and then I think you directly moved into starting your own business, right? What is that
Yes.
journey like? How's it been going so far?
So I start from the beginning. I've loved playing dress up for as long as I can remember. Even as a kid, I was constantly styling outfits and sketching outfits. The this early fascination led me to pursue design in NIFT Mumbai, where I did my graduation. The college really helped me strengthen my design foundation and taught me how to think more conceptually. After that, I went to FIT New York for an associate's degree. And that experience was honestly an eye opener for me. Being in such a diverse environment, I got to explore a lot of different cultures, aesthetics, and ways of thinking majorly. It pushed my creative boundaries and gave me a whole new experience on generally a lot of things in life as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, for my fourth year, I came back to NIFT Mumbai. I made my graduation collection for which I was awarded. And
Okay.
right after graduation, I knew I didn't want to wait or get into the grind of doing a job. I felt ready to start something of my own and build towards my own vision, even if it
Mhm.
meant figuring things out as I went ahead. So it's
Mhm.
been a year since I started, and the amount of practical knowledge I've gained is something I never expected, honestly. And every day I feel it brings like a new challenge, but
Mhm.
from small hiccups to big urgent fires. But it
Mhm.
was scary first, but I started to enjoy it now,
Right.
and it's chaotic in the best way. So yeah,
Oh, that's why it's called white chaos, is it? Because it's chaos
pretty
in the
much,
best way.
pretty much.
Nice. So, like, I actually, in my book, The Freelancer's Mindset, one thing I've said is I finished college and I went directly into a corporate company, and that's where I learned a lot of things. And then coming into freelancing, I actually implemented a lot of the things I learned. There are things I learned from my peers. If I were coming in here blind, I would have no idea, like, no business sense at all. So, how,
Hmm.
when you went from business school directly into your own company, how did you learn everything on the fly? Because you had no prior risks taken or anything. So how did you do that?
Actually, it was kind of that's how I started without any knowledge of business because even in my family, there's nobody from a business background. Everyone is in IT or yeah, everyone is in pretty much in
Okay.
IT only. So I was the first person to get into a creative field, and that also starting something by myself. So I just had a lot of support from my family, and I think I literally figured things out on the way as it is, from
Mm-hmm.
the smallest things like how to make your own website to
Hmm.
how to, like find the right tailor, how to talk to people. Everything I started figuring out on my, by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's majorly about being consistent for what you've started. So yeah.
Definitely.
Hmm.
100%. I think that's a really important mindset shift to have where you make a decision with a certain mood, but then even after you come out of that mood, you continue to do what you put your mind to.
Honestly, I didn't even, I mean, I did think a lot before starting something of my own. But as and when the surprises kept coming, it was, it was very overwhelming in the beginning. But now I
Mm-hmm.
think the surprises are also, I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah,
Every day is a new challenge kind of a thing. So, but now
definitely.
I've started to enjoy that feeling now.
For sure. And speaking of which, every day is a new challenge in which as entrepreneurs, we tend to wear many hats. Now, I
Hmm.
have a creative side when I'm writing content, when I'm shooting such videos, but there's also a business side where I'm the manager of my company. I have to do all the professional, serious work. So, in your field, you're the one who plans and sketches what outfits to make. You're in the creative side, but you're also doing the nitty gritties. You were the one who called me, like when I had added the item to cart and then abandoned it for a while. You had picked up my number, you had given me a call, and that's where, looking at your dedication and the passion with which you were speaking, I thought I really need to, first of all, buy the outfit and also talk to you more personally. So, how do you juggle between these two hats, and how difficult has that been?
First of all, I find it really cute of you that it meant so much to you that I called you for an abandoned checkout. It's very, very sweet of you. Uh, but as far as the juggling hats part is concerned, it's definitely a balance. I'm still learning to navigate. There are days when I really want to stay in my creative zone, sketching, making, samples, experimenting and stuff. But a simple production delay or a shipment issue will take priority, and I just have to switch my gears. And over time, I've learned to listen what the brand needs and
Mhm.
at that particular moment. What helps is setting rough blocks of time for me. For me, mornings and nights are usually for creative work. That's
Right.
when my right brain works best for me.
Mhm.
And the second half of the day, afternoons and all, go into logistics and planning more. That's what I've done for myself. But
Mhm.
of course, there are overlaps, and I just have to adapt according to where I'm needed and how I'm needed. And
Right.
since it's a one-man team, one-person team right now,
Mhm.
it's not always easy, but I've started to enjoy being hands-on with every part of the process. It gives me
Mhm.
a deeper understanding of everything that is needed to bring a design to life beyond the sketchbook.
Mhm.
So yeah, now I've started really enjoying being the business person as well,
Right.
along the design. In the beginning, it really used to kind of scare me that it will
Mhm.
take me away from the designer part. It kind of
Mhm.
has, but I have to do it. I mean,
Right. Could you just give us an example of a time when you had to choose between either being a creative designer or this serious manager role, and how
def
you switched between that?
definitely. So, in the recent time only, since I told you I've shifted to a bigger workshop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every time I sat down to design or sketch, there was something related to either some shipment or shifting or something like that. So the logistics took over every time I had to, sit and create something or make a sample or something like that. So that's something that I didn't like at first, but
Mm-hmm.
um, it's inevitable kind of, and you have
Right.
to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
For
Mm.
sure. And so you had mentioned the part about being a one-person team, and honestly, I'm also a one-person startup here. And I think something they don't teach you in business school is how to constantly believe in yourself. Literally, like, not wait for a team, but how to be a solopreneur and do things on your own. So how did you get into that? Like, be it production, packaging, operations, or influencer related stuff, where I saw you in a lot of videos you have shot as well, and client servicing where you're calling people. How did you get into that, where without a team you directly jumped into this? And was that related to what you learned in business school or something you picked up on your own?
So since it's a one person team right now, it's honestly both a blessing as well as a challenge. The tough part being the burnout. There have been moments when I didn't even realize how mentally exhausted I was because of the constant switching of roles, and at times my mind literally felt all over the place. But the good part I feel is that I've been able to build systems that truly work for me and the brand, from packaging to production to daily operations to the smallest of details. I've paid close attention to every small detail. And I feel that that has happened only because it was just me who was deciding everything for the brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these things have been important since day one. I wear every hat: designer, salesperson, accountant, finance person, procurement, customer care, everything. And in
Right.
fact, when we first spoke, I was in full customer care mode. And that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
parts I love. I've had the most unexpected conversations and met such incredible people just by being so involved in every step. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not easy doing everything by yourself, but that has taught me a lot, especially how important it is to be intentional, even with the smallest of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
For sure. And you mentioned you got burnt out in a bit, which is exactly what happened to me as well. And I didn't even realize I was burnt out because, just for example, I love reading books. I have a library of like 1,300 books.
I
And
can
I
see that.
I had one client who was like into books and publishing, and I
Hmm.
was getting a lot of books from them, reading and reviewing all of those. So at one
Hmm.
point, I thought, okay, I'm not working now, I am chilling, I'm just reading books for myself. But even then,
Hmm.
I was in work mode because I was reading books for my clients. So I
Exactly.
got really burnt out because it felt like there was no off switch for me. I was always on, I was always working. So,
Very true. And also, I feel when you're working for yourself,
hmm
whenever you stop working, whenever you're chilling, I felt that at least that there was a sense of guilt that came to my mind whenever I was chilling, that I'm supposed to work
hmm
24 hours, I have a business and all that stuff. So even that guilt was very got
yeah.
to me in the beginning, that how am I supposed to keep working 24 hours? What am I supposed? It used to just
hmm
make me crazy sometimes, but
Yeah. I know taking a guilt-free break is like so difficult. I have a friend who is a fashion designer, and she told me even when she goes shopping with her friends, her brain is still on. She looks at outfits and she's like, I could make that. What about
that is
merging
so
this
true.
neckline with this sleeve? Like she's always on. She's constantly taking photos like this vest with this sleeve or this collar or these buttons, and
So
she's
relatable.
always
It's
there.
my gallery is exactly the same.
Right?
Seriously. Yes.
I know. So that's one thing I think which all of us have to deal with, where it's the whole mindset shift of being intentional, as you said, and constantly checking in on yourself like, okay, you're still working. When are you really relaxing? I think that's
True.
something really hard to negotiate.
Mhm.
Okay, so coming to the other side of it, where you told me you learned a lot of things in business school, and then things that you learned on your own. Could you just compare those like three things you learned in school which you're using to date, and three things that you learned entirely on your own which they don't prepare you for at all?
Okay. Um, the major thing I can think of, which so design concepts and business basics can definitely be taught in business school or fashion school or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the real learning for me began when I had to deal with people, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's customers at exhibitions or even in an online business, whether it's customers or it's your tailor or karyगर or vendors, navigating the real life communication and expectations has taught me more than any classroom ever could, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So all said and done, people skills is something that I learned through business only, and I don't think any classroom would ever teach you the intensity with which you would have to, practice that, and how much you'd have to focus on this particular field when you start something of your own. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so when I was in fashion school, I had a minor which focused more on business aspects as well. So all those things I could learn over there as well, but majorly, yeah, all these social soft skills I got to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So
So the next thing I really wanted to ask you was, I when I started freelancing, it was an entire culture of, overnight success, do things quickly. Even if you go and if you open LinkedIn for 2 minutes, it's like, oh, so much gyan. Everybody's a LinkedIn guru. Everybody is like overnight success. I'm earning in lakhs, I'm earning in seven figures, everything. So how did you learn to be more intentional, take it slow, and really savor the journey? Now, after 1 year of running the business, you have now opened your own office space as well. So, how did you learn to block out the noise and focus on what you're doing?
before starting only, and even when I was in design school, I used to study a lot of brands very closely, be it Indian brands or foreign brands as well, and how they used to work, how they started. And one thing that became very clear is that what we see as overnight success usually has years of work behind it. That realization didn't come to me immediately, but once it did,
Mhm.
it changed my perspective completely to work. I've learned to value slow progress as long as you are consistent and are working in the right direction. And I cannot emphasize less on being consistent in everything you're doing. Even in design school, uh, a garment, or if even if it's a collection, it would take months. The research, the development, trial and error. So I've
Mhm.
carried that mindset with me. Meaningful things take time to get made, and that time is very necessary for depth and clarity.
Mhm.
So now also I try not to rush the process. It's not always easy, especially in today's time. Like you said, you open LinkedIn and feel very overwhelmed. But I've come to respect the pace at which real things grow. So yeah,
Mhm.
it can get very overwhelming, especially with Instagram. That's the
Mhm.
platform for me. But yeah, it's what you see on the screen versus what happens behind the scenes. Only you
Yeah.
know that, and you know that you have to take it slow to make it big.
Yeah. Okay, so Shreya, there's this one question I have where, we all face those hard times. We face hard customers, especially being in the product line. I'm sure you must have faced some really tricky customers. So, how did you handle the situation and what did it teach you out of that?
So, as far as dealing with customers, I want to make the smoothest experience for them. I want to build an audience. But there have definitely been very tricky customers in the past. So, one example would be that there was someone who bought our bestseller Perfect shirt, customized
Mm-hmm.
entirely from the collar to the length of sleeves to the
Mm-hmm.
shirt length, everything they got customized. Even the as far as the details also are concerned, the pockets they said that you send the pocket separately. If I like it, I'll get it stitched over wherever they live. So I said okay. I sent everything to them, and that also they wanted it in express shipping. I did that as well
Mm-hmm.
because they wanted the product next day. I asked
Mm-hmm.
them to send the measurements, and according to whatever they sent, I got the product made. But the next day, I got a call, and she said that it's not fitting properly, and it's not at all according to the measurements she had sent. But I was sure of it because we do a regular quality check obviously before sending out the
Mm-hmm.
product. So ultimately it resulted in a return, and now I have that shirt. I don't know what to do with that, and
Oh.
it's basically a product that's gone to waste because it's entirely customized.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely have tricky customers, but sometimes you just have to be patient and keep dealing with them.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you like set boundaries with customers? I mean, I know one person who is into fashion design who she makes entirely customized outfits and she has a very strict policy like you have to pay the full price while ordering and since it's entirely made for you, if it's a valid reason you have, we will return and refund it. But if
Hmm.
it's not a valid reason, you're giving something like, oh, it took like 2 weeks to make this, I'm not interested anymore, or you have lost my attention, if it's not valid like that, then only 50% of the payment or 25% of the payment is returned. Or
Hmm.
something where, I don't know, at least replace it with something else. There are certain boundaries she has set like that. So, have
Hmm.
you set any boundaries like this, or in your experience, faced anything related to pricing or return and other offers you have, anything like that?
Hmm. So there are definitely, I feel, a lot of gray areas in customer care, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And since it's just a baby brand, it's literally 1 year
Mm-hmm.
old. So
Right.
I right now I just want to make my customer happy no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
However, in the beginning, I used to feel very guilty, especially when it came to pricing. But over time, I realized that lowering prices for someone just to make a sale not only devaluates your product, but also disrespects the people who are making it, the carriers and the hours of effort that they put in each and every product. So
Mm-hmm.
it's that is one thing that I'm very rigid in the pricing part. Even if it's a small brand, it is what it is. Apart from the discounts that I am offering or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
um, the price is,
Right.
non-negotiable kind. And
Mm-hmm.
that I face a lot in exhibitions. There's constant bargaining when you meet the customers. physically in exhibitions and all. So, and very often they think that, she's just a young girl and, we can just talk and, get the price according
Mm-hmm.
to what we want. But
Mm-hmm.
I've always made that part clear that no, it'll not happen that way, and the price is what it is. And I've also learned that being transparent is the key with your customers. So if there's a
Mm-hmm.
delay or a production issue or a shipment issue, I communicate it honestly and respectfully with the customer,
Mm-hmm.
even if there's some problem, even if there's delay. And most people honestly appreciate that clarity over excuses that other
Mm-hmm.
brands
Yeah.
make. And very often I've got this comment that I actually show up when they have a query and how most other brands do not. So showing up and that also quick responses to customers plays a major role in gaining their trust.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, setting boundaries is still definitely a learning process, but I've started,
Mm-hmm.
trusting that the right customers will understand the value of the product and
Mm-hmm.
the process that goes behind it. So
For
yeah.
sure. And also, how did you go about, like, creating a demand for something that is not like requested at the moment? Like, I mean, handmade products are something so unique right now, and a lot of people are turning to them. But you might be selling a product or service that is not in demand right now, or people might think, oh, that's a nice to have, it's not a need to have. So, for example, the
Exactly.
perfect shirt you said, where it's a really cute pocket which looks like a cat on the shirt. And when I initially saw it, I was like, okay, looks unique, but I don't need that. But then when I started seeing your reels where you're saying everyone's wearing this, all the versatile ways you can wear it, and you'll literally be the coolest kid on the block if you're wearing it, I was like, I need this in my collection. So, how do you create that demand for something that's currently not the hot topic?
So yeah, absolutely. In the beginning, like you said, it's not a very need-based product.
Hmm.
So I didn't expect people to come looking for what I was offering. I had to put it out there and see how it resonated with the people. So
Hmm.
participating in exhibitions really helped a lot for me. Initially, I used to do that a lot, and I would observe people's reactions, ask them questions about what they want, what they like, and it gave me real insight to what works and for what demographics of audience, which products work and what they like basically. And I also focused on storytelling, so not just selling a product but building a visual and emotional world around it.
Hmm.
So whether it's photos or display or even packaging, I feel I've really put in a lot of thought in every in
Yeah.
packaging every. So I try to make the whole experience, a memorable one for every customer.
Hmm.
And that's how people start associating value with what you're offering, I feel, even if it's unfamiliar to them at first. But it's definitely not an overnight thing. You have to keep
Hmm.
showing up, educating your audience a bit, and mostly being confident in what you're offering.
Hmm.
So if the demand isn't obvious yet, if you truly, keep showing up and keep telling stories about your products, and it'll definitely resonate with them. And
So, right before I let you go, Shreya, I have one last question for you. How do you handle feedback? Because again, I think this is not something they teach you in school. They just teach you that, when you're given feedback, you have to change yourself and do it. But how do you receive it in the first place, especially if it's not constructive or it's very vague or I don't know, how do you deal with feedback?
okay, so a lot of people had a lot of opinions, not just when I started my brand, but even earlier when I chose design as a career. I won't lie, it really got to me in my head, and I used to take those comments very seriously and personally, and I used to question a lot if I was, making the right choices for myself. But over time, I've learned to filter feedback. I try to look at where the feedback is coming from. If it's from someone who understands the craft, the industry, or genuinely wants to help me grow, I take it seriously and reflect on it. But if it's just noise and based on a limited understanding of what I'm trying to build, I let it pass. And a lot of time that happens, and since because my relatives, family is not from this background, I see that those comments come from an area of maybe unawareness, you can call it, but yeah. So I've learned to filter it basically. And what guides me the most is my gut instinct. If something aligns with my vision and feels right on a deeper level, I stand by it no matter what. Even if it's not the popular choice, at the end of the day, you have to stay true to what you're building and why you started. So that's what keeps me grounded. So yeah.
100%. And I think that's a very powerful note to end the shortcast on, because staying grounded as an entrepreneur is the most hard lesson I had to learn as a freelancer myself. So thank you, Shreya. Thank you for so much time. Thank you for giving us so many insights and a look into your journey from business school to here, what you learned there, what you picked up on your own, so many different insights to work with. And the main one being to be intentional, to be grounded, and make it a priority to set boundaries while also keeping the customer happy. I think those are the three biggest takeaways for me.
Definitely.
Awesome there. So thank you so much. All the very best for the growth of your company.
Thank you
I will
so
definitely
much.
add the link to White Chaos's website in the description. So if people are interested in checking it out, you can check out Shreya's company and buy some nice outfit for yourself as well. Thanks for
Thank you
watching
so
and
much for having me.
perfect. Thanks for being here, Shreya, and thank you to everyone who's watching so far.